like I was saying, before I was rudely interrupted by this camera cutting off and shit. You can't accuse black people of cultural appropriation. Because at the end of the day, niggas are culture. Everything considered culture. I don't want to say anything, well, you can say that, but all cultures, Native American, India, Chinese, Japanese, Africa, and all that shit goes without saying. Culture, period, man. Like the nigga Kanye said, once again, and quote Kanye, nigga, we culture, baby. Been that way a minute, Hedy Semaine. And I don't know who the fuck Hedy Semaine is. I'm just quoting Kanye from that. I like that interview, man. That was a dope ass interview right there, man. You know, for a moment in time, somebody stood up and said some shit that a lot of motherfuckers probably wanted to say but scared to say. But yeah, man, so you know that was bullshit right there. And I probably shouldn't even spoke on that whole cultural appropriation shit, because a lot of this shit, you know, that's one of the cons of social media. Now, don't get me wrong, social media overall is a good thing. But just like anything else, it has its cons and shit, so you gotta take the good with the bad. But yeah, man, you know, any goddamn idiot can jump out and say something. And you know, it's like Captain Planet. All them idiots get in the goddamn circle and say, let our powers combine. You know what I'm saying? And then you got a rallying up of fuck shit. So, you know, but to get back on the subject, take it back to the whole Black Eyed Peas thing, the Will I Am thing, man. The actual day of the 10th anniversary. You know, early that day, I was funny thing about it, I was back to Kanye. I was for some reason that line where he was like on shit that's the shit I don't like, where he was like they want to find me breathing like they found Mike. That line kept going through my head and shit. And you know, a little bit after that, I started thinking about the Black Eyed Peas, because I had heard I think either Fergalicious or either Fergalicious or which is a dope song too. I like how she twisted that JJ Fad. A lot of y'all probably know who JJ Fad is, but Supersonic, you know what I'm saying? But it was either that or Let's Get It Started. I think it was Let's Get It Started. You know, that kind of triggered me into thinking. I was like, damn, that's crazy, you know. Because at first, like I said, I didn't really get into them when they first came out. And then when they, you know, came back on the pop blast, it was like, and I finally got to hear them, because it was a couple of years passed by before I actually got to hear the, you know, hear their music, since they had put Fergie on board or whatever. But and I was just like, you know, that's dope right there. You know what I'm saying? Like that transformation they went through, that was dope. You know what I'm saying? They still doing what they do. You know, Will I Am still rapping, and you know, him and the other cats. I don't know their names. Y'all have to forgive me for that. But you know, the basic format is still there. It's just the music the direction is more of a pop direction and shit, and it's all gravy. You know what I'm saying? I can see why, you know, they hit it big or whatever, especially with white folks. You know what I'm saying? You know, the partyaholics, cause that shit is straight up party shit. That shit remind me of Saturday Night Lights. You know what I'm saying? Some shit like, you know, you on your way to the other side of the city to hit the club and you know it's finna be lit. And you riding and you just, you know, getting high under the city lights, you dig? Like my nigga, getting towed up under city lights, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Pimp C. But, you know, I was just thinking about that transformation, how dope it was. And then when I got home, I was watching Access TV, and I think they said it was Mike's last interview or something like that. I don't know if it was Mike's last interview or Mike's last Access TV interview. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? But he just so happened to be in the studio in Ireland with Will.i.am. And he was talking about how, you know, he still be writing, you know what I'm saying, doing his thing and shit. And I was like, that's funny, because I was just thinking about the whole Will.i.am transformation and the, you know, the Black Eyed Peas transformation, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, that was Mike, you know, that was a synchronicity right there. You know, and that's how the deities or the gods or the we call them the ancestral spirits. You know, that's how they communicate with you. You know what I'm saying? They leave their signature behind, and you just have to pick up on it. You know what I'm saying? And the more you learn how to do that, you know, the better the chance you have to well, I just say that the more experienced you become in living the way we used to live and viewing spirituality the way we used to see it, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's nothing new. This book right here, which I'm finna get into, it's a key book right here, man. It's a key book. You really, it's a good book for anybody to have. You know, if you're conscious or proclaim to be conscious, you definitely should have this book. But even if you are just now considering taking a path away from whatever religious belief or religious falsehood you may be under, if you just now coming to that point, it'll be a good book for you too, because it's, you know, it's probably one of the best books. And I say probably because relatively speaking, I haven't read that many books on Kemet, you know what I'm saying, on Egypt or whatever. Relatively speaking, you know, because knowledge is infinite, you know what I'm saying? But you know, but yeah. And what's dope about it is, you know, he show you the connection of, he not only does he discuss what we was dealing with in Egypt, he show you the connection and how all these other how the mythologies that we was dealing with in Africa was the same as mythologies and spirituality in other places all around the world, you know, because that's why they call Africa the motherland, you know what I'm saying? That's the root of this shit, you know. And along the way, a lot of these mythologies that we was dealing with, they got twisted out of context and misinterpreted. But yeah, it's a live book to have right here, man. I ate this motherfucker alive, like. It ain't a. I don't even remember reading. I read the whole book. I don't. I ain't read. I don't read it from front to back though. I just be spot reading this shit. Man, it got to the point now where it ain't a page I can't turn to. I ain't read it at least about 3 or 4 times. That's at the least. But get back and oh yeah, with the Will I Am thing too. Before I take off. So that happened. You know, they was out there in Ireland chopping it up, and then the next day I was in the liquor store. You know what I'm saying? I had what I was about to get already. I was waiting in line, and I just happened to look to my right, and when I looked to my right, I saw this right here, Michael's Irish cream liqueur. You know, I just looked to the right and it was right there. I said I better get that. You know what I'm saying? That's how spirits guide you. You know what I'm saying? That's not a coincidence. You know what I'm saying? That's not like, oh, it just had, no, that's Mike. You know what I'm saying? And for people that's not really familiar with this type of lifestyle, for lack of a better way of putting it, those are the type of things you want to look for. You know what I'm saying? When you start seeing them type of coincidences pop up, you know, it could be you know, one of the ancestral spirits trying to get your attention. You know, it could be one of your family members, you know, or entertain anything, you know what I'm saying? Or it can be it can even be elemental spirits, you know what I'm saying? And elemental spirits are just basically deities or symbols that represent the elements like earth, air, wind, and fire, you know what I'm saying? And certain processes that take place within the planet. So you know, and then I got another show you. I'll dive in that later. I really want to get into the science of this shit. It's all science, but I really want to dive right here and show y'all something, you know what I'm saying? Take it back to the whole moon thing and show y'all the connection between Mike the monkey and the moon. On here, in this book right here, Ancient Egypt Light of the World, page 8. Alright. It's saying, ignorant explanation of the Egyptian sign language. Pay attention to what I'm saying. An ignorant explanation of the Egyptian sign language was begun by the Greeks, who could not read the hieroglyphics. Now, that's key because what he's saying is that's the origin of the misunderstanding of how, or the misunderstanding of the information that we left behind in ancient Egypt. You know what I'm saying? And you can look at life as a whole right now, like as if it was the Egyptian sign language, because right now we live in a world where the way you're supposed to live, or the way you think you're supposed to live, is being dictated to you, or has been dictated to you by people who you taught how to live, and they took what you taught them, misinterpreted, and taught it back to you in the wrong way, and basically have got you living your life, your vision basically. You have a caricature of life, really, because the people you trust to tell you what's going on in this world you live in, or have been trusting, the ones in the know don't want you to know, and then you have people that don't know and think they know, and feeding you a bunch of bullshit. But so that was key right there. You know what I'm saying? So let me get back to it. He say it was repeated by the Romans. So basically the Greeks misinterpreted it and the Romans took it and took the misinterpretation and carried it on. And then he said, and it has been perpetuated by classical scholars. But as the interpreter of Egypt, what kind of scholastic knowledge is entirely obsolete? Ignorance of primitive sign language has been and is a fertile source of false belief. Say it again. Ignorance of primitive sign language has been and is a fertile source of false belief. You know what I'm saying? Being ignorant of, and when we say sign language, it ain't just your hands, it's basically the hieroglyphs because they sign symbols. Basically being symbol illiterate has perpetuated all types of falsehoods, all types of superstitions, all types of backwards living behavior, you know what I'm saying? But I ain't gonna go too far, let me keep going. For example, Juvenal asks, who does not know what kind of monsters Egypt insanely worships? So in so many words, he's trying to say that we worship monsters. But he's saying it in a negative way because he don't know what the... See, this is a dude who, first and foremost, the word worship. The word worship only means, it means act to adore. You know what I'm saying? So, but the way we see worship today, when we hear the word worship, we think of being submissive and bowing down to some type of deity or something. In the most common case, bowing down to some invisible God in the sky. Or even more so than that, bowing down to some gods in whatever system you in, voodoo, or whatever you in. It ain't about bowing down to the gods. It's about becoming one. These supposed to be your partners. You know what I'm saying? These your people. You know what I'm saying? When you offer sacrifice to them, like you put food on your altar for them, you do that. That's the same thing as just, you know, looking out for one of your homeboys, and they gonna come back and look out for you. You know what I'm saying? It's not a thing of fear and having to submit and be submissive to some imaginary person in the sky. You know? So just that word alone, the interpretation of that word worship has been taken out of context. Because even when you look at Webster, it'll tell you adoration. So you tell me, ask me, do I worship Aaliyah? I say, yeah, I worship Aaliyah. Not in a sense of how a Christian worships their God. I adore Aaliyah. That's why I speak on her name to keep. That's how you keep them alive. You know what I'm saying? I post pictures on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? I pay attention to certain things when I see it that remind me of them, because that could be them making contact. You know what I'm saying? I do that, but what I do is different, or what we do, people who are on the frequency do is different. Or when we worship, that's what worshiping is. But he thinks, see, when they looked up on them hieroglyphs, looked up on them walls and seen them hieroglyphs and shit, and they were seeing like men with bird heads and men with alligator heads and shit, they took that shit literally. They thought we didn't know what the fuck we was doing. See, this is the sick psychosis of Europeans and shit like that, because these people actually, they had to go back, because they came after us. They had to go back and study what we left behind. Now you trying to figure out what we was doing. But these people have, you know, I once heard there was some guy, I don't even know his name, but he was saying that he said that the Egyptians didn't understand their religion, if you want to call it a religion. He called it that, but you know, and you can call it that in one hand, but that's really when you think about what religion has become, is thought of in these days. You know, you don't want to mess it up in that, but this nigga was like, they didn't understand. Like, hold up, motherfucker. No, you don't understand. And he was saying that based off of the fact that it's like the contradictions within our original spirituality. But the contradictions, that's the world. The world is full of contradictions, opposites. What he didn't understand was we were about the reconciliation of opposites. You know what I'm saying? To the best degree possible. But instead of just saying he didn't know what the fuck was going on, he flipped the game and said, no, they don't know what they talking about. I don't understand what they're saying, so I'm going to just say they didn't know because I'm too smart to be wrong, or I'm too smart not to know. That's the arrogance of some of these motherfuckers tell the truth, but some of these European scholars, so-called scholars, you know what I'm saying? That's the arrogance, you know. But we're gonna go back to this though. And having seen or heard of a long-tailed ape in an Egyptian temple, the satirists assumed without question that this animal was set up as an object of worship. So many words. You know, the white boy seen the monkey on the wall and automatically thought that this was something we submitted to, not knowing this symbol represented many different things on many different levels, one being the moon, another being fire, chaos. But anyway, and having seen or heard the long-tailed ape in an Egyptian temple, the satirists assumed without question that this animal was set up as an object of worship. He did not know that the ape itself was the worshiper, as an image in sign language and as a saluter of the gods. Now that was slick right there. That's why I like this. The name of this author is Gerald Massey. This book, he's slick. He be talking that it's like he be bombing on the motherfucking all them scholars and shit that was misinterpreting the science and hiding shit because of racism, and motherfuckers who knew the truth but didn't want to tell it because, you know, they was a part of that agenda to keep black people looking like we always been dumb and shit. He getting at them in his book in a slick way, and that was slick right there. He was like, nah, nigga, the ape was the worshiper. Why? Because the ape saluted or adored the sun, or reflected the sun's light out of adoration. You know what I'm saying? When you salute a nigga, you say nigga, you salute him, that means, yeah, I adore you. Pause if you talk to a nigga. You know what I'm saying? But that's when you salute somebody. I mean, that's like I'm showing respect. You know what I'm saying? And that's what the monkey represent by the monkey or the ape being associated with the moon. One of the things it represented was the reflection of the light off the moon, or the reflection of the sun's light off the moon. But get back to it. He did not know that the ape itself was the worshiper, as an image and sign language, and as the saluter of the gods. Annie, that's what I was telling you the other day, you know what I'm saying? Annie, are you okay? Annie, the name of this particular ape, denotes the saluter, and to salute was an Egyptian gesture of adoration. The ape, or Cynocephalus, with his paws uplifted, is the typical worshiper as saluter of light. It was and still is looked upon in Africa generally as pre-human moon worshiper, who laments and bewails the disappearance of his night light and rejoices at the renewal and return of that luminary. In the vignettes to the ritual, Annie the Eighth is the saluter of the rising sun. That is Ra. That is a Ra up on the Mount of Sunrise. One of the most profound perversions of the past has been made in misapprehending this primitive sign language for what is designated worship, whether it's sun worship, serpent worship, tree worship, phallic worship. The tree, for example, is a type, but the type is not necessarily an object. Now let me show you what he means when he's saying that. When he say type, what he's saying is for example, tree worship, for example. The tree would be a type of symbol for the tree would be a type of symbol for, on one hand, your spine, the spine of a human being. On the other hand, it would be representative of the spine of the earth, or the core of the earth. When you look at the tree, and you go back to that Sambo video where you talk about the tree that grew upside down from the sky. Basically, what that symbolically speaking, that's your pineal gland, which sits at the base of your at the base of the brain. That's the root or the seed, and your spine grows from out of that the same way that a tree would grow out of a seed. But your spine grows down, and your body is built. Your body is constructed around the spine, and the bottom of your body is where the or right at the tailbone. That's where the growth of the spine ends at. So it's like the spine is growing from out of the seed or the pineal gland, and if you compare it to a tree, it'd be an upside down tree because the root is at the top. You know what I'm saying? So that would just be one type of representation of the spine. Another type would be the scepter or the magic wand, the Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? That would be another, which still takes you back to the tree because, well, at least the Hollywood one. You know what I'm saying? Because you can make a wand out of wood, gold, or any, you know. But that'll be another type. You know what I'm saying? So just to go in on that a little bit. So let me finish though. See what else is key up in here. I don't want to get too far off subject, but I can really get jiggy in this book right here. Funny thing about this book, when I went and got it, I went up in Barnes and Nobles, and they didn't have it in the store. You have to go tell them that you want to order it. So when I went and hollered at the cat at the counter, I was like, yeah, man, I'm trying to get Ancient Egypt Light of the World by Gerald Massey. Now, I didn't know it was broken down into 2 volumes. It's 2 volumes, but eventually they made one book and put both volumes in it. So he was like, I was like, y'all want, after I told him what I wanted, the first thing that came out of his mouth was, well, which volume does your professor want you to have? And I found that odd because, first and foremost, when you assume you make an ass out of you and me, or really yourself, honestly. But I'm looking at this nigga, I'm like, I'm like, what? He was like, I was like, what was that? He was like, which book does your professor want you to have? Because it's volume 1 and it's volume 2, and then it's one you can get with both in it. I said, well, give me one with both. It's like, all right. Now I couldn't help but wonder what made this man think that a to me, the way I caught that was, this nigga was like looking at this shit as if the only way a nigga would be reading a book, and this is just my, you know, and maybe I'm wrong, but he was like, the only way, to me, his mind was like, the only way a nigga would be even reading this type of shit is if he had to for school or something. like I can't just be, which I was, independently interested in this without being connected to some goddamn school or going to school or something. You know what I'm saying? And that really was a reflection of that really was, to me, that was a reflection of how black people have come to be viewed. And that ain't the first time something happened that made me feel like, you know, all these other people look at us like we stupid or something. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, this stereotype of niggas being stupid. Now, on one hand, you do got a bunch of shit that a motherfucker can look and say or use as examples of why they think that. You know what I'm saying? And it goes back to the whole saying about us being all one. See, when you doing stupid shit, it does reflect on everybody. Because the more and more people that, in this case black people, the more and more black people who do shit that perpetuate these stereotypes, you make it harder for everybody else. Because now niggas that are not stupid end up in conflict with people who, because they base or they paint with too broad of a brush, they overgeneralize when it comes to estimating the intelligence of black people. People who are intelligent end up in quarrels and conflicts with these type of people because they think everybody's stupid. So when a nigga that's not stupid come around and they do something that indicate they think you stupid, you know, you're gonna be offended. You know what I'm saying? It can be something simple as the way they talk to you. You be like, motherfucker, you think I'm that stupid so I'm not catching what you saying? And sometimes them motherfuckers don't even be knowing. That's why you have to have a keen sense of discernment when you're dealing with people in other races, because sometimes it's not necessarily that they are racist or they are they don't like black people, or they view black people as being stupid consciously. You know what I'm saying? A lot of this shit be subconscious shit. That's why you can have a motherfucker that love black people to death, but that still end up saying something that a black person will find offensive, because the racism, the institutional racism over these past, well, we just said since when we was in slavery and all that, 400 years and all that old shit, the institutional racism is so deeply ingrained in the fabric of especially America, but the world in general, and this was done by design, don't let nobody fool you. It's to the point to now where all these negative stereotypes about black people have been passed down from generation to generation. You know what I'm saying? And not only that, the way we were portrayed via media and all that shit. You know what I'm saying? That don't help either. You know, you go out to the world and, you know, you start bumping into motherfuckers that think we all the same. We think we all the same, or think we all stupid. And a lot of this shit be based off of the fact that niggas have been doing a bunch of dumb shit. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you have to give niggas a pass to a certain degree, because, you know, the shit we've been through, man. You know, like I said, I talk my shit, but at the same time, I understand at the same time that you know, the state we have fallen to, this shit was done by design. You know what I'm saying? It was done by design. You know, craftily did. You know, it was craftily put together. So it's only so far you can go with criticizing the behavior of black people, because at the same time, this is some shit that was did to us. Now, today, now that what I just said is valid, but that crutch, because it could be considered a crutch, you know, we got to slowly remove that from us, from under our own crutches. We got to slowly remove it from under our arms and stop giving the people a pass based off of that. That's why I'm still critical of niggas' behavior, because some of this shit, man, it started to be like, come on, man, this niggas, you know, these signs are getting too clear, you know. Now I know, you know, I ain't saying this shit's supposed to come into a utopia and everybody's supposed to just wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, but it's certain shit that's just common sense, you know what I'm saying? Certain shit is just common sense that niggas are not catching on to, you know what I'm saying? And maybe it's you know, maybe I you know, I like to think that niggas are a little bit more intelligent than that, you know what I'm saying? Even though I know the deal and I know what's going on, yet and still, you know what I'm saying? Because my soul knows who we really are. You know what I'm saying? I know where we came from. I know how we used to live. That's why I know savage shit from civilized shit. When I say savage, I ain't just talking about that little shit. You know, everybody is savage today. You know, they just use that word because it sounds cool. Bitch, I'm a savage. I'm a savage. And it's like, really, they not even using that. And some of them are. Some of them really are savages. But I tell you this, the ones that really are savages, you know, they in last place. That's scraping the barrel. You know, when we think of a savage, we think of somebody with no culture, a knuckle dragger, a caveman. You know what I'm saying? Motherfucker, you know, take it to the white man. The white man came into this world as a savage. We had to go into them caves and civilize them and teach them everything. That's why, even just like I was just talking about the cultural appropriation thing, we are culture. Every language that you hear spoke, or every language that is spoken, came from us. You don't believe me? Go get my man brought a book, Nile Valley Origins or Nile Valley, damn, I don't know how the fuck I forget this name of the book, but Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. And he got a quote in there from a white guy named Count Varney. Now, Count Varney says that, and basically, you know, he's one of the good white folks. But in his quote, he says, he basically explaining how he's criticized his own people. He was like, white people had a nerve to treat black people like shit, when these are the people that are directly responsible for us even having being able to speak. You know what I'm saying? So all this shit, that's why I can take you through all the different languages and take certain words and show you what that shit means, take it, translate it, for lack of a better phrase, back to Egypt and Africa and all that shit. You know what I'm saying? Because all that shit comes from the same place. But anyway, I don't want to get too far. You know, let me get back on the mic. See, the monkey, like I was telling y'all, the monkey is a symbol of transformation because it's associated with the moon. And the moon is a symbol of transformation, obviously, because it transforms. You know what I'm saying? When you see the sun in its full form, or you see the sun in its full form, every time you see it, it's the golden disc. But the moon, on the other hand, it goes through waxing and waning. So you'll have 14 days of waxing, 14 days of waning, half moons, quarter moons, full moons, you know, etc., etc. So the moon is always seen as a symbol of truth, and that's how you got to get back to thinking That's how we originally thought. You know what I'm saying? Just like this part right here say, no better definition of myth or mythology could be given than is conveyed by the word sim in Egyptian. And we can bring it back to the Sambo thing. You know what I'm saying? Same, reconciling what appears to be two opposites. That's what mythology is about. That's what the code metaphors and shit is about. Or coming up with metaphors is about. Being able to describe one thing or basically being able to what would be the best way to define it? To basically compare two things or use one thing or speak about one thing in place of another based off of the similarities. You know what I'm saying? So for example, you might write a poem and you might say something like the zigzag of the snake zigzagged across the sky. But really you're talking about lightning, but you call it a snake because the lightning bolt is serpentine just like the snake is. You know, it looks like a snake. So when you go back to Mike and the transformation thing, Mike showed you Mike was the goddamn perfect example of transformation and what is. Because he literally transformed the way he looked from little Michael Jackson to how he looked when he died. And his whole motif was on some moon shit. Like I say, go back to Smooth Criminal. Annie, are you okay? And that song is really mythology. Like I say, it stood as a connection with me personally based off the fact that my grandma's name is Annie. But when you listen to the song, when he's talking about Annie, he's really talking about the moon. The other joint, which one I gotta finish, where I'm basically showing you how the earth, which what I'm gonna show you is how the earth came into fruition and how we blew the moon. The moon really was originally a shell of ice around the earth, because when the primal energies raised up from the center of the earth, which is what the Great Pyramid represents. If you just look at the world as a table, and the top of the table is melanin waters, dark water, swampy waters, watery melanin soup, as I like to call it. When in the bottom is pure pristine light, and at the center of this table you have one point where the light is in the dark and they're combined at the center. So you had the light at the bottom, the darkness at the top, and then you had a middle where they meet at, and they both exist. That's the Sambo. That's the reconciliation of opposites, reconciliation of light and dark. But from this center, the primal, the Elohim, or the Am Kemen, as you want to call it, because Am Kemen is the 8. The Am Kemen, you had a copy of the center, because the center is always the center represents true north, or that's what represents the real reality. And you can look at everything that's reflected. That's why we tell niggas, heaven ain't in the sky. What you see in the sky, all that shit you see in the sky is a reflection of what's going on inside of you. But to make it a little bit more easy to understand, if we was just talking about it in a cosmological fashion, everything that you see outside, that you think is outside of the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, all that came from, put it like this, the center of the earth is ground zero. Everything came from the center of the earth. When that primal, when them 7 forms of energy, which correspond to the 7 chakras, first a copy of the center shots raised up, which was the light and the dark. And then you had 7 more that came after that. 7 more melanin mounds with light inside of them that raised up, following that first one, which would give you 8. But as these primal light, as this light raised up, the water that was inside the water that was inside the melanin on the top of the table, it rose up. Just like when the sun rises, it causes the waters of the earth to precipitate. This is where you get your when they in the Bible where they speak on the separating of the waters, the light waters from the dark waters. The light waters is the waters that raised up with the that was just like when you purify something. You know what I'm saying? The heat purifies. So basically, the water following the heat of these primal lights raised up out of the dark melanin. You know what I'm saying? From this center point. And just like you had light, the primal lights going up and entering into the darkness, you had melanin goop, this melanated goop, falling back down, falling downward from the center point, with which shaped itself around it basically when the primal lights was raising up from under the table to over the table, basically what they was doing, they was leaving behind the ash. The interaction between the light and darkness created an ash, a spine, really, just like, because it's the same thing as the creation of the baby in the womb. So that's where you get the whole story about I don't remember that thing, Lot or some shit in Sodom and Gomorrah, where they was running from the city, and the lady was supposed to look back, and she looked back, she turned into a pillar of salt. The looking back symbolizes the melanin that went backwards, that dripped backwards down the pole or the center of the table, while the light was going up. But that's why it's called Gumara, the Gu-ma-ra, the Gu of the mother or Ma and Ra. Because just like the light, when the light raises up into the darkness, it's when it comes out of the center, because the center is basically like, you can look at the center, once that first copy raised up and the 7 followed, basically what the 7 did was, when they passed through the center point coming from the bottom, they were encompassed or enclosed in melanin, in a melanin ball to protect them from, so when they rose up, when each one rose up, it would be enclosed in a cluster of melanin. So you have a cluster of melanin with light at the center of it. And then it took on an opposite effect with the goo going backwards, because when they say the wife looked back and turned to a pillar of stone, what they're saying is the goo ma-ra, the melanin, which is the woman, when it went backwards, the interaction between the light and the melanin created an ash, and this ash in the form of a stick or a pole constantly pushed down and created a pillar where seven centers or seven centers of goop, melanin goop can form. And these corresponds to the chakras as well, you know what I'm saying? But the difference between the ones at the bottom and the ones at the top the light was inside the melanin in the center at the bottom, which would later on become the center of the earth, the core, or the underworld. That's the underworld. You hear about those science in the underworld. You know, that's the way the underworld was formed by the goo that dripped from the top of the table down the center. And it's basically like basically trading places. All the light that was at the bottom made its way through the center upward. You had seven. The Elohim basically shot up through the center and went straight up, remaining at the middle. And then you had residual light that spread across the table, spread across the top of the table. And same thing with the melanin. You had melanin that formed the seven that was on top of the spine coming straight down, and then on the sides you had the residual melanin that as it came through the center, it seeped and went outward. And this is why you have oil and shit like that under the earth now, because oil ain't nothing but melanin. But when they say she turned into a pillar of salt, the pillar of salt, because it has different interpretations. But one is the fact that it was talking about the ash. Salt was just another way of saying ash. You look at salt, you look at ash, it's both grainy. You know what I'm saying? And on the other hand, salt is an alchemical thing. I don't want to go. I get too far track going into that, but yeah. So even when you look at the word salt, salty. Sol is the sun. Sol, Sol, Solomon. Like Solomon means the sun. Salt, S-O-L means is the sun. Om is the vibration. You know what I'm saying? That represents vibration, the word. And on is the darkness, basically. The melanin, the melon. But Sol, even in Hispanic, in Spanish, S-O-L means sun. But Sol and soul, one and the same. Soul T, your soul, which is crucified on the cross. What's the cross? Your body. In this case, it would be the table, because the table is really becomes the top of the earth, and the top of the earth has four directions: north, east, south, and west. You know what I'm saying? The top of the, I guess you say the top layer of the earth. You know what I'm saying? Because the top would be the globe or whatever, however you want to look at it. But the east-west axis and the north and the south form the cross. So basically, while this water raised up, and first the seven all went up, and you had the lead one, which would really start serious, but you had the one that was the top dog, as we would call it, and then you had the seven. You end up having seven clusters of melanin with light in the center coming out of the top of the table. And then after that, each one of the clusters of melanin absorbed the one beneath it. So the last one to come up from the top took a little bit of light from the center, because the center, one thing you gotta understand about the center, and it'll probably be a little bit more clear when I go back to breaking it down with the imagery. But the center is where the light and the darkness, it's always light and it's always darkness at the center. So after the last bit of light that was meant to come up from the bottom went to that seventh cluster, the center closed off. It was opened up for the primal light to come through, and then after all seven of them came up, it closed off. And then after that, the last the seventh one to rise up was absorbed into the sixth one, and the sixth one was absorbed into the fifth one, and the process went on all the way into the eighth one, had absorbed all the light back up. As this is happening, all the water and air is expanding out, because the light that was that didn't go straight up the center and spread out throughout the top of the table was going to was basically when all the light in the center was being absorbed by the one when each cluster was being absorbed by the one above it, the same process was happening with the 7 vibrations on the table. Because it was 7 rings that laid flat on the table. Each one of them rings corresponded to one of the melanin clusters that was at the center, which was on the pole or whatever. So the water expanded that, or the mist or whatever, the water and the air, basically as it was separated from the melanin, expanded in the same direction as the light. And it eventually, it got to when the light got to the edge, or got to the 7th ring, when it left the 7th ring, that symbolized because when the 7 was absorbed by the 8th, or the 7 or the last cluster that was left was absorbed by the first copy that was that came from the center. Like I said, the same process happened on the base of the table. But when that light went into the 8th, the 7th ring that was at the that was laying flat on the table, or laying flat on the table, all that light left from that 7th ring and went out into the 8th, or the blackness of space, basically. So all the heat was when all that light went out, when all that light from in the center went to the top, and all the light that was going out throughout the circumference left from out of the circle, it left behind basically what you can call a barren wasteland. Since it was no heat, because all the energy that left out of it, it left behind a winter wonderland, as one might want to call it, or basically left behind the earth that was created by this process, because that's what was going on when all these lights was raising up and falling down. But it left behind the earth, and the outer shell of the earth was basically a shell of ice. And the same process, I am here at the bottom part. I give y'all that on when I actually do the imagery, so you can really understand and see what I'm saying. But when this happened, when all that light was drawn from what was created by this process, it left behind the ice shell, and then the process reversed. All the light that was that went out through from the circumference came back in through the circumference and traveled back to the center, and all that light that traveled up through the center up into the all the way up to the top, it shot back down. That's the whole thing about the wrath of God and all that, because when it came back down, it came back down in a violent manner. And I'm gonna say that for but when I got the the pictures and shit to show y'all, cause I got the shit mapped out. Like, it's really more so, I got this computer, this laptop with this 3D paint shit. I might just I really like my drawings better, but I think I might need to go with the 3D thing, so I can really show you what I'm saying a little bit more better, because I can show you how the globe come into formation, all that, whatever. But so when the light came back in, it's like it shattered through the ice. You know what I'm saying? It had to penetrate through the ice to get back through. And then once all that light that was at the base of the table or flat out on the table came back to the center, and then that ball of light shot back from the top, shot back from the top went back to the center, and then went down